Yes, you definitely can live in your home while a major addition is happening. It's going to depend on the type of addition, the area where the work is happening, and your tolerance at the end of the day. So we've actually created like an SOP for this because we've had clients who they live from home. We break the project down into phases. We've even had clients who work from home. I remember we had this one client that he was an attorney and he really loved to work from home, and he had some pretty strict timelines, which is not our favorite. But we would have to start work after like 8:30, and then leave before 4:30. Um, Sometimes, obviously we had a bit more flexibility than that. But it was, one of the things that we did was that we actually built a temporary like dust wall. And so we completely closed, half of the house down because he was remodeling his entire kitchen, all of this family room, and then he was upgrading all the electrical panels, and we found a whole bunch of hidden stuff. One of the ways that we accommodated him was that we helped him a little bit with the move out on with the packing. We built a big um, temporary dust wall, and then we soundproofed everything so that there was minimal noise transmission. He could work from home while a lot of the loud construction noise was going on. And obviously, there was no transference of dust and debris. And we didn't need to open that up until the project was about 90 to 95% complete. So for him, it was great. Another client, they already had an existing home, and we added like a wing to each side. Um, so again, this is like where tolerance comes in. This client, they were very intolerant to dust. So again, same thing. We had to create a dust barrier, minimize, access and intrusion to the home. I think the dustiest part was when we had to replace all of the impact windows and doors throughout the house. That was in addition to the uh, extension that we put onto the house. So we added 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms. We increased the size of their laundry, and we created an office space as well. So it was pretty big. I think it was like 1,600 square feet. And this client, they lived there the entire time. We're used to these conditions. Is it easier to move out if you can and not have to deal with all of that? Definitely. Um, but that also increases, your cost, your project cost, because you might have to be paying, now, especially in Miami, wherever you want to move, and depending on your situation, $5,000 a month, just to rent a house like short term. Some people they take like a 1 year lease that they have to deal with. Um, and we have to get the house done within that time. I know we just finished a really big, like 1,000 square foot addition, and the client said, "Listen, this is our move-in date. Our move-in date was for them. It was like November or December, but they added a lot of extra work because as we were remodeling, we found that there was a lot of termite damage. We found that there was a lot of just work that the previous owners, which were actually fix and flip contractors, they left the house looking cosmetically very nice, but once you started opening up those walls, it was a huge mess. So the integrity of the house itself and the construction that these guys did was just very poor. So we had to repair a lot of things and improve upon a lot of things. Then, so they had that move-in date, and by that time, the majority of the work was completed. And what we did was that we let them move into the house. They had no more holding costs. Um, they gave us about like an extra 3 weeks because they took a nice like vacation out of the country. But by the time they came back, everything was ready for them to move in. And so there was still quite a bit of work to do, but by that time we had phased it in a way where we prioritized all of the interior and get everything ready for them to move in. And we, again, prioritized our manpower towards that, and then left the exterior work to be completed after they had already moved in, because they still hadn't finalized details there. So that's a way that we resolved that issue. Another situation was a client where we did it was an addition that we did, but this addition, the client did not live here. They lived out of state, but they would travel. So they would fly in, or they would let a lot of different friends and family use the house. But we took out an entire wing of the house, and it was like the wing with all of the bedrooms. So there was a period of time, about 3 to 4 months, where nobody could come and visit the property. And if they did come and visit the property, we would have our weekly Friday check-in calls, which we have with all of our clients, and then they would let us know ahead of time, and they would say, "Listen, it was August, and they said we're planning a trip for October 12th. We're gonna come down with all the family. We want this to be ready." Obviously, you know, by that time, with that really massive addition, we built a second story and a third story active rooftop with an elevator in the middle of the house, and so we had to tear down the only existing bedrooms so that we could, build within that house. So it was a tremendous amount of work, and then we had to sort of work by levels. And as soon as all of our work was done and our inspections were passed in that area, we had to rebuild those bedrooms right away. So we had to prioritize that so that the house could still be used by the owners. But, a client living from home, the story that I was going to was this client, he was traveling. And what I remember was that he calls me like on a Friday late at night, or he sends a text message at 9 or 10 p.m. at night, and he's like, we had prepped everything before. We were very careful, very cautious. And then 10 p.m. at night, he sends a text and he's like, "Oh, hey, I have no hot water at the house." And I just pretty much freaked out because, the client, again, he only comes to visit this house about, you know, once every 4 to 12 weeks. And he's investing money. This is one of the best clients we ever had. He's spending over $1 million on this project, and I wanted to make sure that we accommodate him while he's present visiting. So it tells, hey, there's no hot water, and our plumber, the designated subcontractor plumber for that project, he was out of town as well. I mean, thankfully, we have a list of other subcontractors that we can hire, but he referred a friend. And I went crazy because this is a very high end Japanese water heater that costs $2,000 to $3,000. It's called the Renai, incredibly high quality, and it just stopped. They had never had any problems before. Um, and so guess what? I had to call like 8 different plumbing supplies until I found one in like South Miami at like Ferguson Plumbing. They had two in stock, and I was able to get one of them with all of the valves and the kits that came along with it. And at the same time that I got it, I picked it up because I had to confirm to the plumber that I got the backup water heater because he wasn't going to come for no reason. He's like, "Listen, if you can find this, like, you know, water heater, I'll go. If you can't, then, he won't make the trip." So I had to make sure that I confirmed that I had the water heater. Had one of my guys pick it up who was on another project in Miami, drove it all the way to Fort Lauderdale. He took care of us there. Um, and so after that, the plumber shows up and he starts looking at everything. And this guy is like a master plumber whose specialty is in maintenance. And so this is a waterfront home in Miami. In not in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale. And so there's obviously a lot of corrosion in the air. And all this guy did was he unhooked everything, he looked at it, and he flushed out all the valves, and all he did was service it. And immediately it was functioning like new. It's been like a year and a half, year and a half since he serviced that water heater, and it's still going super strong. But it just so happens that this water heater that's like 7 or 8 years old happens to fail the night that the client, decides to stay and take a shower at 10 p.m. at night on a Friday when my plumber's out of town and when um but that it's hilarious because that stuff just sort of happens, and I think contractors, they have like a running joke, like everything works totally fine until like that moment when the construction project starts, and then suddenly that's when like things will fail. I've had clients ask me, things have failed in like the opposite corner of the house where we're working, and the client will ask me, "Hey, why is my, you know, sink on the opposite corner of the house from where you're working, like not working anymore?" And I was like, I've never even, I didn't know you had a sink on the opposite side, like, but it's funny. But yes, I think those 3 to 4 stories tells you it's definitely possible to live in the home. You just actually have to find somebody who's going to be willing to work hard enough to accommodate that situation, and it might make your job a bit more of an investment because you got to put like all these processes in place. You might have to pay for the temporary walls, but if you run the math, you will still end up saving more money than if you, again, paid $5,000 a month to rent an apartment somewhere for a year or 6 months or however long it takes for your construction to be done. 6 to 12 months is the average for us, but we're doing pretty big projects, additions that are 1,000, 2,000 square feet, an entire second story. So, uh, the answer is yes.